Right, well, we're joined here today by a very special guest. So this is HYROX trainer, RedBull athlete, 24/7 represent head coach, and current pro men's doubles and singles HYROX world champion. So Jake Dearden, pleasure to have you on the podcast, fella.
Well, thank you.
So for those of you, first of all, who don't know what HYROX is, what is HYROX?
Okay, so it's this thing that not many people have heard of. Obviously, it's getting more and more popular, but it's essentially fitness racing. So it comes in the same kind of bracket as OCR, obstacle course racing.
Right.
And it's a fitness race that stays the same. So the race stays the same as a marathon would stay 26.2 miles. It stays the same. And the race is a 1K run followed by an exercise station 8 times through. So if I was to just read it out of the top of my head, it'd be a 1K run, then you've got a 1,000 meter ski erg, then you've got 50 meter sled push, then you've got 50 meter sled pull, burpee broad jumps, then you've got farmer's carry, walking lunges, and finishing with wall balls. And there's a kilometre run between every single one.
Every single one, you just keep repeating it, don't you? So obviously you're a master HYROX trainer. So what is a HYROX master trainer, and what does it take to become one?
Okay, so basically I essentially work a little bit with HYROX, the actual company, and I go around to affiliate gyms and I coach their staff on HYROX, basically how to train for HYROX first and foremost, how to train clients, and kind of make it profitable.
So it's like a culture thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like a culture thing. So HYROX in itself is a sport. It's very similar to HYROX. It's very similar to CrossFit, where you can. It's a fitness event, but you can become an affiliate. So if your gym can become an affiliate, and then you can start doing HYROX classes and so on. So I go and teach them how to best become good at HYROX, if I
makes sense. Like it's the top individuals of the HYROX events that get to be a master trainer, and then basically you go around every gym sort of bringing them up to that sort of level.
Yes.
Is that about right?
Yeah.
So obviously your background is that you spent 5 years sort of studying engineering that not a lot of people know. So what was the change from obviously going down that path? What was the change there? Like when did you then decide, oh, do you know what, I'm going to pursue this as a career?
It was quite interesting, really, because we're actually both from the same place, both went to the same school, but like you'll know that the culture of being from Lee is to kind of get a job. You're successful if you get a job for life and you get kind of like a 9-to-5 office job. And I remember sat in school, I was actually in year 11 in school, and this guy came in from a company and he was basically like saying, you need to be an engineer because it's going to, you're going to have a nice car, you're going to have a nice home, and you're going to have this for life. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's incredible, because we're not from a wealthy area, really, if that makes sense. So I went into civil engineering, and I was working for a
so that was through college?
So kind of straight from school, I went and did an apprenticeship, civil engineering apprenticeship. Realized, well, I actually thought at the time that I was just really, really lazy. Like I was probably doing like 2 hours work out of like an 8-hour day.
Right.
And I just really, really struggled to focus, really struggled. And not gonna lie, I still do now, but the reason was that I didn't actually enjoy it. And I found most of the time I was either writing training programs for other people or writing my own training program or going to the gym on my lunch or doing, anything but work. And I did this literally for 6 years because everyone around me was like so excited for me to become a civil engineer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I realized one day, I realized that I was working, like the average age of the office was probably about 50. I think it was about 95% men. Like it was weird. Like any time like a female walked into the office, it was like everyone was like meerkats.
Everyone was breaking the necks.
Yeah, breaking the necks, meerkats, looking up, and it was just full of dirty old men basically. And I thought, this is not me. Like I'm not kind of, I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. You look at the people around you, and would I want to be any of them? And like, no offense, probably not.
Yeah. Would it be fair to say that the fear of becoming that was stronger than the sort of motivation to do the exercise sort of journey?
Yes, and the fact that I was like, I couldn't sleep at night because I thought someone's going to find out that I'm only doing 2 hours work. I'm not doing a proper day. Like I'm bad at my job basically, and I was pretty bad at my job because I didn't enjoy it. So I started finding an interest in nutrition. So I went and enrolled on a nutrition course while still working. Completed that. That was a year long. Found it really interesting. And then after that, started helping people out with nutrition programs, with training programs, and then thought I actually probably need to get some more qualifications. So I went and did a PT course as well. Yeah. And then at that point, I then thought, oh, I'm going to make the jump. I'm going to make the leap. And I went to my boss and I said, I'm handed in my notice. And he was like, what do you mean you handed in your notice? No one's ever quit this job. Like, I don't know what to do. There was no kind of like there was no policy like
exit.
Yeah, an exit
strategy. Yeah.
So like, are you sure you want to do this? Do you want to become a PT? Because again, PT at the time, like compared to the job that I was frowned upon. If that meant, like not frowned upon, but like looked as like, oh, you're never gonna make anything.
Well, it's like lower pay, higher risk, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, I was like, no, this is what I want to do. So I then left and I joined a local gym in terms of being a PT there. So I was a PT at a local gym, and then another gym reached out to me and said, oh, do you want to come for a chat? And then that was the Hybrid Performance Centre, and I worked there for 2 years. And that's when I really kind of got a passion for this hybrid training, both weightlifting and running,
like the CrossFit world and all that sort of stuff. I think that's when I first came onto you. It was CrossFit. I seen like what you were doing, because it was around like the end of COVID era, wasn't it? Like during COVID, I remember seeing like you were just in this random place doing this hybrid stuff, and I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. Then obviously the HYROX came later. So I just want to skip ahead a few years. Obviously, when you started the HYROX and whatnot, like I was reading into you and I seen that you'd had this like bad injury where you like slipped 2 discs in your back. So I was just wondering, like I couldn't find any information on how you did it. I know you did it at the event, but walk us through like what happened there, like in that event.
So it probably starts off a little bit before that, and I'd been for a couple of weeks prior, I was training really hard. I was doing competitions every single weekend, and I was just wasn't resting, and I wasn't prioritizing rest. And I hadn't actually signed up to that event, so it was the London HYROX in 2023, in May it was. And I basically got FOMO on the day, so with fear of missing out on the day. So I woke up on my Instagram, and HYROX runs like from morning to night, and I think it ran over the weekend. So there was some on Saturday, some on Sunday, and I'd seen some people like posted their results and stuff and said, oh, it's such an amazing event, and I hadn't signed up at all. So on the Sunday, I woke up and I was like, I'm going to find a ticket and I'm going to compete.
How did you manage to? Because I've heard they get booked in months in advance, don't they?
Yeah. So how there's kind of like a Facebook website, and people drop out on the day or drop out a couple of days before. So I looked on the website and someone was selling a ticket. So I was like, I'm going to I'm going to buy this ticket. So I bought the ticket, drove 4.5 hours to London, and then just went straight into this event essentially. And now obviously a 4-hour drive. Feeling stiff, not warming up properly, and then going straight into it.
But then what was your physical like composition like before that, in terms of like, were you fit at the time?
Yeah,
so it wasn't like you were injured or anything.
Fit, just kind of like overtrained, if that makes sense. So I'd not I'd trained twice the day before. I'd not like rested up like you would normally before an event, and I went straight into it. Did actually okay. Got to the final station, which is the wall balls, and 40 wall balls in, I felt something in my back, and then by the 46th wall ball, like I could not, like I literally collapsed. I tried to stand up, I couldn't stand up, and they had to wheelchair me across the line, and that's that funny picture that you've seen. But it was a lot worse than people slip this, and they're like, oh, it's sore. I literally physically couldn't move. I couldn't move. I spent the night in A&E, a lot of painkillers, a lot of morphine to actually just get me like pain free. And it wasn't really pain free. It was just so I could lie down. And then after that, it was like a month before I could walk.
Yeah, it's no joke. I did one in my neck. You'll remember? Did you remember me doing the one in the neck? Like I went up for a header at 40, and where they topple your bum and like you go over. And I landed on my neck, and I just remember feeling a very warm feeling, and then I thought, it's all right. But then played like 20 minutes, got to like full time, and then got in the like had a shower, got in the car, and by the time I got in the car, I just couldn't move my neck. Like so, then I'm driving and I'm like going to roundabouts like this trying to go, but it's no joke, is it? Like it is no joke.
No,
but,
it's strange what like adrenaline can do to you as well.
Oh,
like you say, you could carry on playing.
Yeah. That's what I mean. 15 minutes of like running around, and I even headed a few balls and thought, fuck me, like it was hurting, but not to the level where you think, oh, you know, like I've slipped a disc here. But what was the first thing that went through your mind? Obviously, when you'd done that, what was the first thing that you were thinking of?
Well, I was just hoping that I'd be okay. So it took a while before I'd kind of like know if, because with this in your back, obviously it presses on nerves and it can disrupt the nerves to an extent where you can be paralyzed. So that was kind of like my first like thought process was like, do you know, am I going to be okay?
Yeah.
And then a couple of days later down the line, we had an MRI, and I kind of was with doctors, I was with my physio and stuff like that, and we worked out kind of like a plan going forward for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty scary at the time.
So like one thing when I was reading into it, it was like obviously you had that injury, but then literally a few months later you started planning for your world record event, weren't you? So like
so I used that like. Obviously, there's a couple of reasons I wanted to do it. I wanted to raise money for charity. I wanted to kind of like inspire people. But the other reason was to hold me accountable to my rehab process.
Yeah. To make sure that you had to do it because you had some sort of goal to go.
Yeah.
So obviously, like for those that don't know, like you did 11 HYROX events concurrently in 48 hours. I'm just going to read out, just for those that don't quite understand how much there was. So overall, it was 88 kilometers of running, 11 kilometers of ski erg, 550 meters of sled push and pull, 880 meters of burpee broad jumps, 11 kilometers of rowing, 2,200 meters of farmer's carry, 1,100 meters of walking lunges, and 1,100 wall balls. Do you remember what you said when you were asked, why didn't you just do 10? Do you remember the thing you said? Because I screenshotted it a long time ago, and I remember thinking like, I like that.
I can't.
So you said, because they said, why are you doing 11 and not 10? And you said, oh, well, because everyone's doing 10. That's what you said. Like, I remember screenshotting and thinking, I like that. So, like, what's the mentality there in terms of, obviously, you were holding yourself accountable to doing, obviously, you wanted that goal of, like, rehab to then go. But why? Like, why was it that extreme?
Well, prior to that, I have done quite a couple of kind of like extreme challenges, mainly kind of like ultra marathons and from a running background. I wanted to do something within the HYROX space, but I wanted, like, my main reason for it is if I can do 11, then someone who thinks that they can't do 1 can probably now think that they can do 1.
Yeah. So they see it as a minuscule thing, whereas
and it's not to, you know, doing 1's a massive thing, and that's like an incredible achievement. Like, you know, 1 can be as hard as 11. It depends how hard you push. It's just, from the outside, I just wanted to inspire and get as many people into HYROX as possible.
Yeah, and then obviously a few months out. So like, what was the actual, like, once you'd done the world record and whatnot, what was the feeling there? Like, how did you feel in your body, yourself, and whatnot? Like, how bad was that?
I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't as bad as previous stuff. So a couple of things that I've done previously, ran 100k, ran 100 miles in one go, and I did 10 marathons in 5 days. Now, doing the HYROXs, I'm not saying it was easier, but it was easier because there was always someone watching. So I actually did it at another London event, and there was always supporters there.
Like a crowd and stuff,
And again, that adrenaline of having someone there watching you, the pressure of having someone watching you, or just say, come on, Jake, or whatever it is, that pushes you on and that drives you, and it takes away the pain that you're feeling. I don't know if you've ever run a race, whether it's 5k, 10k, or like a marathon, and you run past the little kids that they're high-fiving you, and you high-five one of them, and like, it almost gives you a boost. It's like this kind of like adrenaline rush that that happiness can give you, and it just takes away all the pain.
I can 100% relate, because like I said, my version of it is football. Like, sometimes you'll get a crowd and there'll be like 200-300, but then you get a crowd there's like a few thousand, and it's the difference is or if in yourself.
If the crowd starts cheering more,
exactly.
You know, even if you're losing in the crowd, you know, and they're all shouting "come on" or whatever, like, it gives you a boost of adrenaline, and no matter how tired you're feeling, you can still push further than what you think.
So obviously then several months after that, you won your first event, so you won the pro men's doubles. So what was that process like? What was it like actually, you know, getting that win?
So after the London event, we then worked hard with my doubles partner, Mark, and we went on to win the World Championships. So we qualified for the World Championships, and then we've gone. But within that process, like there was a lot of like hard training, and it had gone from kind of being to be able to endure as much as possible to then to be able to perform. And the only way that I can relate it is someone training for a marathon and then the same person training for like a 5K. Like that's how it like it goes from like run as long as you can to then running as fast as you can over a certain distance. So the training like completely changes. Obviously it's a lot of teamwork because you're in pairs. You need to work to our strengths and weaknesses. And that was kind of like the main change. So kind of like a rigid kind of 12-week training program that we stuck to. We train together kind of like 2-3 times a week, just to make sure that we know each other on the race day. We get a feel for each other and we know each other's fitness, and then we went to compete, and then I think we won by like 6 seconds. So it wasn't much at all.
It was dead close, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So obviously you had that win, and then you've literally just got back off obviously from Cape Town with your singles win as well. So which would you say was the better win? Which did you enjoy the most?
The World Champs is pretty cool because it's the World Champs. So that was in Nice. It was a special event. Like everyone that was there was kind of like competing at like top of the level. So that was kind of incredible. Whereas Cape Town, basically it was the first HYROX ever in South Africa or in Africa as a whole. So there was a lot of kind of like, I think 80% of people had never done a HYROX before. And then like you had like 20% of people that had flown in or they'd done a HYROX somewhere else. So the standard was different. But again, you're just going off times and you're just trying to beat your own times. So I beat my own time by just over a minute. So that felt good. Like the one that I've just done, because it shows that my off season's paid off, because my time previously was a minute slower.
So what would you say is the hardest part of the whole HYROX for you personally? Like what event would you say?
I think wall balls at the end is always a killer. So for anyone that doesn't know, it's 100 wall balls for females open. So there's a couple of different categories. For females, there's 2 categories. There's open and pro, and there's the same for males. For female open, it's 4 kg wall ball. For female pro and men's open, it's a 6 kg wall ball, and then for men's pros, a 9 kg wall ball. And you basically got to do 100 wall balls.
Doesn't seem that heavy, does it? But then once you do 20 of them,
it's
pretty fucking heavy.
Yeah, it's just a hard movement, especially after absolutely everything, after an hour of working as hard as you possibly can, to then go and try and do. So I actually split it up. Well, I didn't split it up. This is what I did. I did 79 wall balls unbroken. Then I did, I think I did 16, and then I did like the last 5. But yeah, my aim is to get 100 unbroken.
Have you you've never?
I've done it within training, but I've not done it within a competition.
At the end of an event where you're absolutely gassed. What would you say the easiest part is for you? What do you excel
me
at most?
Personally, I think the farmer's carry. It's very fast, so it's 200 meters, and if you can kind of go unbroken and just hold on to the kettlebell. So again, it's 32 kg kettlebells, and you've got to move 200 meters, which if you move fast, it's like a minute and a half. Now, if you move slow, obviously it's longer. If you drop them, it's even longer. So you've just got to keep hold, which I do okay with that.
That's so odd because like I've not talked to loads of pros in the HYROX, but like everyone who I've talked to who have done a HYROX, including like I've done like an unstructured one myself. That's by far the hardest. I think the farmer's carry is the worst one.
It is if you can't do it unbroken, because there's no, you've got to physically stop what you're doing. It's probably the only part of the race where you've got like you physically, if you can't carry them any longer,
you can't do it.
You're not progressing within the race. Whereas like if you're struggling with the skier, you just go a bit slower, but you're still moving forward.
You're pacing, exactly.
So
that one, you hit a wall, you're like done.
So you've just got to practice.
So like, what's the physical preparation like? Obviously, in these build-ups, these events and whatnot. How do you prepare physically for that?
So I have training blocks where we focus on specific kind of like weaknesses. So say, for example, this off season, we probably trained for around about 12 weeks, and I set a goal of being able to run a fast marathon, because and that line aligned with my goal, because if we look at kind of like the best in the world at HYROX and like the 15 of the best, and like I suffer with my running. I'm not as good as runner as
that was always crazy for me to comprehend, because I always knew you as an unbelievable runner. And then I was talking to a mate who knows a lot about HYROX, and he said, "Oh, well, Jake's weakest part is the running." I was like, surely not.
Yeah, and it's just So that literally is my weakest part, and it probably still is. So me having a running challenge where I've got to kind of stick to a training program to get better at running has really helped.
Yeah. So like, how do you prepare on the mental side?
Oh, mental side. So it's quite interesting this, because I've done it bad ways and I've done it good ways. The bad ways is before, like 2 weeks before an event, I'll start going quiet. I'll be, having dinner with my girlfriend or whatever, and she's like, "You're quiet. What's up here?" I'm just thinking about the race. I'm just thinking about this race. 2 weeks out, I'm like, this race doesn't matter to anyone apart from me. It does, like on the grand scheme of things, like half of the people haven't even heard of HYROX, and I'm thinking, oh, it's the end, like life or death if I kind of do well at this event or not. So I start to kind of like worry about it, and that's not done me any good personally. Like some people, it can help focus and it can help, being anxious and stuff is good, and I think it does.
Is that, sorry to interrupt, is that like a nervous thing, do you think?
Yeah, like just being nervous. But for me, like being that far out from an event and getting nervous about an event and starting thinking about an event, it just kind of made me sick, or made me like I'd start, like my body would start like getting injured that week before, and I'd not do anything. I'd be walking up the stairs and I'd pull something, and it was just pretty strange. And I've literally like done a lot of research on it and spoke to sports psychologists about it, and they say like it's just down to you putting your body under stress by thinking about
stress, isn't it? I knew exactly what you were going to say.
So like when I spoke to this sports psychologist, he said like, let's do the opposite. Let's not think about it until the day. So he said,
how did you do that?
Right, okay. So obviously it's not as easy as just, right, I'm not going to think about it. But he said, fill your days beforehand. Like a lot of people have this deload week where they cut back on training and they have a lot of free time, and that's where they start thinking, and that's where they start, So fill up your week beforehand, but with things that are still going to help you recover. So whether it's going for a massage, whether it's going to the cinema, you're kind of still chilling, you're still doing what you need to do, but you're not kind of like...
But it's not taking away from the preparation, but then it's also not like leaving your mind open to thinking, oh, fucking hell, the race and all that sort of stuff. So that was... So basically it was scheduling.
Scheduling your time. So literally what I've changed is I literally do that. I do some fun stuff that's not taxing, but like I'll go out for meals with friends, I'll go for massages, I'll... spend time recovering, so I still feel productive. Another thing that a lot of people, I think, find guilty of is not training and just sat there doing nothing. Just put that time into something else, whether it's going to sauna, going to the steam room or whatever, and I think that helps. So
something that's like still benefiting the body but not putting it under stress where it's going to affect the competition. It makes a lot of sense. So what's like, obviously, see, you said you start these 12-week blocks before an event, so what's like the standard day? Obviously I know you'd periodize the different training and like strength training, running, whatever, but what's like the standard, it's like your schedule, like what time do you wake up, sleep, eat, blah blah.
Nice. I like that question. So I get up at around 6:30. So sometimes I get up earlier depending on if I'm training really early, but normally it's around 6:30 I get up. I'm at so basically what I do as well alongside kind of like performance stuff, I'm the head coach at Represent 247, which is a clothing brand, but we have a gym there, and I coach all the staff. So in the morning at 7:30 we have a class. So that's I wake up at 6:30. Class at 7:30, so I'm coaching people. That's till at 8:30. Then I'll have a training session. So from 8:30 till about 10:30, I'll train, where I have a PT that comes in. So I have a personal trainer myself or a coach, and he comes in and we do either strength and conditioning, or we just do, if it's an easy day, then we might do a lot of mobility and strengthening work, but like light load strengthening work, like strengthening through full range, and working on technique of kind of things. And then what I'll do, I'll go home, I'll eat, I'll do emails or anything that I need to do in terms of like work, meetings or anything, or coaching. I'll do for kind of like 3 hours during the day, and then in the evening, I'll then come back and train for my second session. So that second session might be something really intense. If it's kind of like, I have high heart rate days and low heart rate days. So if it's intense, it might be intervals. It might be a fast all-out effort run, or it might be kind of like a HYROX workout or a HYROX simulation style workout, and that'll be in the evening. And then get home, have more food, and then go to sleep. So it's kind of people that, oh, you're living the dream. I think people think, oh, do you know, you live in the dream, you get to train whenever you want, you get to, but when you get pressure, like, and it's funny because you only realize this when it happens to you.
When
if
you're
you
in
do,
the scenario.
yeah, like you quit your job and you go full-time athlete or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I've just had a friend that's done it, and he's like, it's not what I thought.
In what way?
Just the pressure. If you label yourself as like a full-time athlete, then you've got to perform. You've got
like
to, like, the pressure. Yeah, you've got the pressure. Like you're sacrificing everything now. Like if you go out on the weekend and get drunk, that's affecting your performance. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's to that kind of, especially with HYROX, like it is to that extent, because at the end of the day, it's what your body can do.
It's all about your body. Yeah,
it's very low skill. So it's very much kind of, you stress your body, you create that stimulus, you stress your body, then you recover. So that recovery needs to be perfect. So you basically, you're taking a lot out of your life, and you've just got to have this simple kind of where you're training twice a day. You're doing a bit of work in between, and that's kind of
it's not like a team sport where you can kind of have a night out here and there, and you can kind of make up for it on the pitch or whatever.
It's really interesting you say that, because since being with RedBull, I speak to a lot of their athletes, and a lot of their athletes are very skill based. Whether it's the BMXers, whether it's
skiers,
like a lot of the
and all that
bikers,
sort of
skiers and stuff like that, and a lot of them, don't get me wrong, they've worked very, very hard to get those skills, but they've now attained their skills, and I think you don't lose skills like you lose fitness.
Yeah.
Like, so they can enjoy themselves sometimes. They can go out, they can party, they can get drunk, and it's just a little bit different. And everyone every athlete's different.
Yeah, I remember looking into that. It's an important point that a lot of people know it, but they don't know the actual ins and outs of it. So you can start sort of going backwards in terms of, from a physical perspective, after 3 days of being sedentary or like being still. Whereas for skill, it's usually about 6 months where you start to lose skill if you've not attained it. So like, you bang on with that. So for someone who would obviously come across HYROX and think, oh, I might give this a go, what kind of things would you tell a person who's just thinking about starting HYROX? What kind of advice would you have for them?
So first of all, make sure that you've got a good training program in place, and then you need to practice running under fatigue, which a lot of people aren't used to, and that's where they kind of mind blown and they get humbled when they do a HYROX. Like a lot of people, they think, oh, they've got a really fast 5k or 10k and they can bench press in the gym, so they think they can do a HYROX and they think they'll be really good at it, and then they get down to it and they realize that they struggle. So having that kind of in place, if you're a beginner especially, practicing the actual movements. So a lot of people overlook the movements because they are very simple. Like you think, oh, a burpee, do you know, a burpee broad jump? I don't need to practice that, I can do a burpee. And a lot of people go into that, and don't get me wrong, they do a burpee, but they don't do it efficient in the way that you can move 80 meters. Like 80 meters is a long way when you're doing burpees.
For sure.
So making sure that you're practicing the technique and kind of studying it as well. Like if you think about HYROX, it's 9 exercises. Like running's one of them, and it's people's profession, just running and just like being a good runner. Times that by 9, and that's how many things you've got to think about. So there's professional rowers, like professional skiers, and you've got all these things. Like don't get me wrong, they're stationary, but you've still got to practice them and learn the technique.
Well, it's a lot about technique, because like you've mentioned something very important that I didn't. Like I said, I did like a collapsed version of a HYROX, and I can run in that, but like not very well. I'm not a great like distance runner, but running under fatigue is another level of running. Like I remember when I was at uni one time, I remember getting asked by a sports scientist saying like, "Oh, are you a good runner? Like, are you an efficient runner?" And he got me on the barometric. I was like, "Yeah, like I'm pretty good." He goes, "You are one of the worst I've seen." But like, he goes, "Like you think that distance running's hard for you because of like you're quite small, you're quite stocky, you're quite explosive." But he goes, "Like most of it's down to your technique." He goes, "I can tell that." He goes, "I can tell you're a footballer just from the way you run." He goes, "Your running is so inefficient. You're used to like having to run fast, and when that happens, you're not concentrating on the technique, so you just slowly implement it into how you run, and that's just it." So it's something I've had to really like focus on is the actual technique of even arm movement. It's just like crazy.
What was the main things that he told you to work on?
So he was saying like I was doing sideways. Like I wasn't, have you seen like the way Ronaldo runs? I wasn't doing it quite that much, but I was kind of moving like all over the place. Like I wasn't linear at all. And he was just saying you just need to slow your arms down a little bit and move them in a continuous way because your arms are just all over the place. So then as I've got older, I've got a bit better at it. And like even just working on that alone has helped me massively. But obviously so that's good advice for those who are obviously wanting to go into HYROX, but I'd probably argue that them people who are a bit more advanced. But what would you say to people who are completely sedentary, who are wanting to make that lifestyle change of getting involved in exercise at all? What would you say to people like that? Because obviously we have this growing almost epidemic of people, like the obesity levels are going up and up and up. So what would you say to people?
So I think the gym is looked at as kind of like a chore. For these people, or for the majority of people, like the gym is a chore. Like they go to the gym, they're either burning calories so they can eat, like do you know, and they just kind of like having this energy balance where they're trying to match how like their output or kind of increase their output so
they can keep eating.
Yeah, they're just thinking about this calorie deficit all the time.
Yeah.
Or they're literally exercising so they can eat, or it might take a little bit longer than what they think. So they're not going to stick to it, and they'll just sack it off after a month or whatever because they're not getting the results that they want. Whereas HYROX has come along, and it's this event that kind of does the things that you want. Like you want from your body. So you go into, if you start HYROX, you're going to look better, you're going to feel better, you're going to be fitter, but you're not thinking about any of that whilst you're doing it because you're going into a gym, you're doing movements with kind of like a community, and you're just thinking about how you improve for that race, or doing your best that you can do within that race. So kind of switching your mindset from aesthetics to kind of like performance is probably the best thing that you can do for longevity within training, because that's what anyone wants. Anyone wants, like, I want people to have FOMO, or fear of missing out, of going to the gym, because all their mates are going to the gym and they're doing the certain class, and they're like, oh, like for me, that was my new Friday night, for example. Instead of like
some Friday night,
and people, do you know, people think, oh, you're sad or whatever. But like, if 10 of your mates are going to a HYROX class or going to any kind of like fitness class, and like you could either be there or you could be going to the pub with your friends. Like you're still doing the same thing.
I'd argue it could be anything. It could be anything as long as you're doing it with people, like, or with your mates. Like you could be doing bloody anything, but obviously.
Yeah. So having that and having that little bit of a community is just a good way to get into it. Yeah. But it takes the pressures off. Oh, I need to be a certain amount on the scales, or because the pressure is performing at an event.
Yeah, I think that's why HYROX, like, because I was thinking about this like for the last few months of like, why has it gone so big? Like when I talk to people about it, like, you can't get a ticket and all this sort of stuff, like the amount of people at the events and on these waiting lists and all that. And I was thinking like, why is it so big? And it is exactly that. The reason you just said, it's like a community thing where like I said, I go to I'm a bit sad, me, like I go to the gym and I specifically train for football, and that's pretty much all I do. And it is like over time, it's like, fucking hell, like it's hard work, but when I have done things where it's, I've done training with mates, or when I've done the HYROX, I did it with a few mates, and I thought, like, I get why people do it, because it's like, it's the best of both worlds. You're getting that physical sort of adaptation of training and all that sort of stuff, but then it's also like, you're spending time with your mates, it's a community thing, and then there's the challenge as well, and then also the competitive side where you're like, oh God, I can beat him, like sort of thing. He's been doing it for a few months, like, let's try and beat each other and all that. So yes, it's definitely like a growing thing, and it's definitely a positive thing. What's a piece of advice that you'd offer yourself? Like, if you could go back and offer let's say your 16-year-old self just leaving high school, what would you say to that person?
In terms of fitness?
In terms of fitness.
In terms of fitness, the one thing that I'd offer myself, or one piece of advice that I'd offer myself, would be to focus on moving well. I think a lot of people neglect moving well, and they move like shit basically. So like whatever you're doing, whatever sport you're doing, or if you're in the gym and you're squatting, like perfect that squat before you start adding load. But perfect that, look at your efficiency of everything, because that will help you progress so much faster than just ignoring it and just loading up the bar for what, say for example it's back squat, just loading up the bar as heavy as you can go like that, and doing quarter reps, or your knees caving in, because that is going to lead to one injury. If not an injury, then it's just going to be poor form, and then you're going to be really, really tight and really, really stiff. Like stiffness, if you think about people that are, really inflexible and really stiff, that's your muscles being tight. Your muscles are tight because you've overloaded them in some way, and your body doesn't like it. So your body tightens up the muscles to stop any further damage. So if that means that you're doing something wrong or you're overloading it, so what we need to do, we need to first of all kind of loosen their muscles off, but then we need to strengthen them in the range that they need to be strong. And then you over time you're not gonna be aching when you're walking down the stairs in the morning when you've just got up. You don't have sore feet, you don't have like everything. Like I've gone through the stage where I've overtrained and trained and just loaded up the bar and loaded up, and I felt like a 40-year-old. And I look like a 40-year-old as well. But
I think like an analogy for that sort of thing is like it's like a marathon, isn't it? Not a sprint. Because I've had the same stuff. Like when I've been told to do my runs for football or whatever, it's like, oh, I've got to do a 5K, just do it as fast as you can. And anytime I was running, it was always fast as you can, fast as you can. Whereas like the last year or so, I'm preparing to do like a 100-mile race, hopefully in the next 6 months. So I've been doing
incredible.
And I got given a piece of advice. Someone said, if you want to get good at like running faster, he goes, run slower. And I was like, oh, I don't know about that. So then I just started doing these slow runs where I just like, constantly like, where I don't pick up any injuries anymore because I'm just taking it a bit easier. But then if I was to do a 5K, I'd do it much faster because I'm fitter. And like you said, like your muscles are used to doing that sort of, light load. But then like you said, with the competition, when you need to do it, it's ready to do. Whereas if you're constantly training where it's like intense, and there's not that recovery there and whatnot, it's then hard to then turn up and perform like you'd want to. So like I said, it's like a marathon, isn't it? But so in terms of like your diet and stuff, what is your diet like? Like what kind of things do you eat, like your protein intake and things like that?
So I'm I am a nutritionist, so a qualified nutritionist. I've done all the kind of like calorie counting before. I'm a fan of whatever diet works for yourself, as long as it's varied and high in protein. So me personally, I love high protein things. So like a standard day of eating, I'd have pre-workout. If I was training in the morning, I'd have something high in carbohydrates. So this might be porridge, it might be bananas, it might be, if I'm like on the move, it might be as simple as like cereal bars, for example. Just something high in carbohydrates so I can perform within my session. Post-session, I'll replenish glycogen stores. So I'll have something high in carbohydrates again. It might be, something like rice, or it might be something in a meal. So I might have, but I need protein with that meal as well. So I kind of carbs and protein after any workout, and then I do like my fats. I get my fats from healthy source fats. So like eggs, I'm a massive fan of, nuts. And kind of like animal meat, so I love kind of like steak and stuff, which obviously has fat in as well. So yeah, diet is kind of generally, I'd say majority whole foods with some things that are more convenient. Like I've realized, like I've gone through the kind of like whole food approach where everything has to be whole food, and the stress that it causes you,
a lot, isn't it?
That when you're out and about, or when you're at an airport, or when and you're looking around, you're like, I can't get anything that like it's not worth the stress and the inflammation that the stress causes on your body, just by thinking about yourself, more harm than so kind of whole foods with convenience is where I like to go. But high protein, probably medium carbohydrate and loads of medium fat if I was to go ratios.
I think one of the biggest, because I have a sports science background, and one of the biggest misconceptions I see is that people think that, like if I just I just drink 4 protein shakes a day. That's my protein. Like, and I look at it and just think, yeah, but it's not coming from whole sources. Like, it's not organic, and it just doing that just does nothing for you. But do you have like protein shakes and that to talk?
Yeah. So like if you look at kind of like the amino acid structure and stuff of protein, like I think this should be deemed as a superfood. Realistically, like protein, like at the end of the day, it's made from milk. You have your curds. And then you have your whey. But I think so. It should be used as kind of like a superfood, but you shouldn't swap out all your whole foods for it, because again, you're not getting the other nutrients for it. But coming from like an amino acid profile, it is pretty good, to be fair.
What other supplements do you take, and like what benefits do they?
So I'm a massive fan of creatine. So there's studies and studies and studies on creatine at the moment. A lot of people say, you should only take 5 grams per day. I'd suggest a little bit more.
What would you suggest?
So if you take your body weight and like 0.1 grams per kg of body weight. So say for example, if you was a 90 kg man, you'd have 9 grams. Right. Okay. If you was 70 kg, you'd have 7 grams. And I think that's a little bit more effective. But how I feel like that helps me is it helps me store more water, which then I perform better within sessions because I'm a little bit heavier. I've got a little bit more water, but the water is actually stored within your muscles and it's used within your muscles. So like your muscles perform better.
So you're hydrated more as well.
Yeah, you're hydrated more. So you're stronger. You're more powerful, and I think you look better as well just by having creatine. So I'm a massive fan of creatine, and there's a lot of studies on kind of like neurologically it can help with aging and stuff like that. So I'd recommend it across 100%. The board for everyone. Omega-3 is really good for lowering inflammation. So I take omega-3 fish oil, especially if you're not a massive fan of fish. I don't have that much fish in my diet. So
yeah, me too. So it's grim, isn't it? This guy though, he loves it. He literally cooked a lot of salmon sticks last night and stunk the gaff out.
Love that. What other supplements? There's a couple of things that you can do. Kind of, I don't take every day, but like if I was to compete, there's citrulline malate, which it is a nitric oxide producer, so it dilates the veins. Nitric oxide dilates the veins, which if you dilate the veins, then you've got more blood flow, and then more blood flow is better for performing. Literally, you can get more oxygen to your muscles.
Is that quite expensive? Though?
No, it's really cheap.
Oh, really?
Citrulline malates, really cheap. It's like £10 for like 1 million servings. it's like 5 grams again. It's like creatine, same price as creatine. Okay. I think so. There's that. A lot of people are on the beta-alanine hype at the moment. That's the tingling sensation.
You've had that?
Yeah. So I've tried it before, but how it works within my sport, so within endurance, is it's a buffer to lactic acid, but you've got to take it day in, day out for 8 weeks for it to have an effect. Now the tingling sensation I don't think's worth it. It's versus weird, versus the effects that it has. So
I remember like literally, because I went to John Moore's, which is just down the road, and we did a beta-alanine, so I was part of this study, and like I had the tingles, it was pretty bad, but a lad who had eczema, like I was having it, and honestly, he was like, my skin felt like it was on fire and whatnot. But I remember it being pretty ruthless because they did it like, where they control the studies of they give some people sugar pills and they give so you didn't know what you were getting. I knew what I was getting. Like I was like, I feel like you're getting nettled half the time. It's ruthless.
No, I love it. Yeah, it definitely works.
100%. So like obviously like on the other side to it, do you ever have like some like sort of cheat days? Like what's your like go to like cheat day / cheat meal? Like what kind of things do you like?
It's funny because I'll still have generally whole foods because I don't know, I've kind of like got used to them that much that I just love having. So like if I was to go on a meal out, like there's nothing more than I love than going to a steak restaurant, which again isn't, if you're having steak, you might have chips with it, or you might have mac and cheese if you go to Gaucho, then you're gonna like you're gonna have some like things, but like generally it's good quality. Me, it's really good. it's funny. My doubles partner always takes the mick out of me because once I said that I've overeaten on fajitas, and he was like, "You over it? That's your
that's
cheat
your
day."
cheat meal. I'm about to say I'd take that and run. To be fair,
but what's your cheat meal?
Oh god, I do like just like cookie dough.
Okay,
I do like a bit of cookie dough. I never like buy or anything
tooth.
like that, but then like if I see like a dessert and whatnot, that's probably my go-to. I like a bit of cookie dough. Probably once every few months. Or something.
Do you drink?
No. Well, we went on holiday the other week. So
where'd you go?
We went to what's it called? Where was it? Turkey. Marmaris.
Oh right, okay, nice.
It was alright to be fair. But yeah, like that was the first time I drank in about 8 months. I had 4 beers, still got it to be fair. I'm quite a good drinker to be fair. Like I don't really, I can handle my ale, but
yeah.
But yeah, I've not drank in ages. Like in terms of probably like the last 2-3 years, I probably drank 4 or 5 times if that. And then as of the last year, I've literally just drank that once. So.
Oh, do you feel better off that?
Yeah. Like you feel sharp. Like I remember like every so often you'd go out, especially like training and stuff like that. You know, like I've been really lucky because I've never really had hangovers. I have a very high metabolism, so I've never really had hangovers. I've probably had like 5 or 6 in my life. So I've never suffered that way, but you can definitely tell in terms of like energy, like for the next few days and whatnot. Like,
do you think that's just off like the lack of sleep that you have from like a big night out? Maybe
it's not just one thing, is it? It's a multitude of things. Like you said, your glycogen stores are a bit off because it's not proper, like a proper source of carbohydrate. For one, the sleep, just the general fatigue and whatnot. Obviously, lactic acid threshold goes down the floor, like down the pan. Obviously, once you've had a bit of drink as well, so you just can't run as long, and even just your general muscle output is just poor. So like, I've definitely noticed it. Like I said, my continuity in the gym has just been seamless. Like in the past, it's been like bloody hell, like really tough some days because I've drank 4 days ago and whatnot. So I've not had that. So I have seen the benefits and whatnot, but I just kind of got bored of it. Like, you know, I was a uni lad and stuff, so I've had plenty of it in the past, but I just kind of got bored of it. I've never actually really liked it that much anyway. I don't really enjoy a beer per se. Like I just enjoy like a gin every so often and whatnot. Kind of drink it, for the social side. Have you been much of a drinker in the past?
Not really, actually. To be fair, we went out on Saturday, so after we competed, went out on Saturday for the first time. I've not drank since Christmas, so very similar to yourself.
Yeah.
I just normally like when drinking, and I must come across as like the boringest person ever on this podcast, but like I put myself in a bad mood before I've even started drinking because I'm like, this is going to affect the next couple of days. I'm not going to be able to train. I'm going to, there's no point in the last week of training that I've done.
You cause yourself more stress off thinking about drinking than the actual drinking.
Yeah, like but there's some points like I can't go to like a nightclub and be sober. I cannot do it at all.
I know what you mean.
I'm like as stiff as a brick. So like for me to have a little bit of a dance and stuff, I've got to drink. So it's a trade off.
Yeah, that's why it's one of them things. I've been on a few nights out, like I said, in the last year, where I've like not been out, but like been to like a little bar and you just think, fucking hell, it's quite people are having a good time. You're just like, so that's the downside to not drinking, definitely. I guess. So on the motivational side, obviously, like when we said before about like how your sort of training, your lifestyle is very like demanded on the body. It's all about the body. So when the gas tank's low and when training's really hard and you're hitting that wall, what kind of place do you go to keep yourself going?
I think like I don't know how I'm perceived by other people is a massive motivator for me, and I don't think that's positive or negative. Like I don't think that's what people should look for. But like if I'm really really struggling in a race, for example, I think about everyone around me, whether it's my girlfriend, whether it's family, whether it's friends. They've made the effort to come out here and watch me, and me like not finishing or like wanting to give up. Like how's that going to make them feel? Like they've literally whether it's 2 hours out of the day, whether it's they've traveled to a different country to come watch me, whether it's my girlfriend like dealing with me the week before when I'm moody or whatever. Like all them things get into my head. I'm thinking is like I need to push on here because I want them to be proud of me, if that makes sense.
Like it was funny because when I got up the other week. And I've got a quote here that I'll read to you, but I got up the other week and I was thinking, oh God, the gym's a bit rough today. And I seen your video saying like all the work is done for the event.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to read you a quick quote. So one that I came across as I was looking at that. So we don't rise to the standards we have when others are watching. We fall to the standards we have when no one is watching. The only work that really matters is the work that no one sees. It shows you who you really are, not who you say you are. So what are your thoughts on that?
It's 100% true. I think a lot of people like fake it. Like, well, not essentially fake it, but you can tell that they've not potentially done the work that they say that they've done.
Yeah.
And it shows within performances. But I think, you've just got to have a strong mindset, and you've just got to, if you commit to something, then you've got to just be true to yourself. Just make sure that you get the work done that you need to do to be able to do it.
I think it links in what we were just talking about, the alcohol and whatnot, and the nerves you were talking about before, like when on the build up to an event. Like obviously we'd compete in different sports, but I felt a lot more confident this last year because of like things like not drinking and doing more work. Whenever I'm playing, it's a lot like lower stakes for me. Like I feel less nervous and stuff because I feel like the work's done. So like that's why I related to that. I thought the work's always done, whereas in the past when you think, oh, like, you know, you got a big game or big this, big that, sometimes you have that doubt and that like sort of stress in your mind of like, and you're nervous because you've had them times where you've like probably not gone to the gym that time you should have, or not done the thing so it's like almost trying to leave like sort of no stones unturned sort of thing.
No, I love that, but I do think it's probably easier for myself and yourself to have motivation because of how much we rely on the sport that we do.
Yeah.
Like I've literally known you to play football all your life, and you know how much it means to you. Is a massive motivator for you. So like when you know that you want to get better at football, and you know that the gym is part of the process, even though you might not like the gym or you might find it boring, you're still going to go because it's just like a non-negotiable.
Yeah, you understand the benefit.
Yeah. So like it's kind of more like you treat your hobby as a lifestyle.
Yeah.
More than and like you treat it more of a lifestyle than a hobby.
Yeah, I think that's like important because like the question I asked you before about getting people involved in the gym and whatnot. Like when people ask me like, oh, you know, how do I get fit? And that the last thing I'll say is just start going to the gym. What I'd probably say is find a hobby and then supplement that hobby with the gym. So like, you know, you might be hiking and stuff like that. So then go and do like, you know, low bearing stuff in the gym to help you with hiking, stretch your muscles out, all that sort of stuff. Do you like, I don't know, hockey, football, whatever, and then go and supplement that in the gym. Whereas if you just go to the gym and like, I've seen a lot of people, like it's interesting, like there's people we went to high school with who I look at now, and the people that, you know, forgot my PE kit and all that bullshit, and now they like PTs in Dubai. Like I'm not going to name names, but there's a few of them I think, oh, that's mad that. But very few people can do that in terms of like just fall in love with the gym. Like usually it's, you know, a hobby supplemented by keeping an active lifestyle and then, you know, doing stuff in the gym to help you with that. So I think that's a lot more attainable than just, right, here's a gym program for 5, like, you know, you've never been to the gym before, here's a gym program, like go and do it. I just feel like that's just boring.
I think that's really cool as well, because I think in today's day, especially like how inactive everyone is in their day-to-day life, like realistically, to be healthy, you probably need an hour of exercise a day.
Yeah.
Just to get your steps up or get kind of, whether it's strength training, whether it's, so like, if you've got to think about that and you've got to think, I'm never going to be healthy unless I get an hour of exercise in. Yeah. It don't have to be every day. It might be every other day. You might as well find it fun, like find something that's fun and you enjoy.
Yeah.
Like that's number one. Like if you don't find it fun, then you're never gonna.
Yeah, you're never gonna. But like it's interesting what you said about people just don't move anymore. I think that's just like the general thing. People don't move anymore. I remember like when I was in uni, we were doing a course on sedentary behavior and physical activity, and it was saying like the average steps per day like a few years ago were like 12,000, which is like highly active now if you went on like, you know, the bloody WHO guidelines, and then the average of today is like 8,000, which is like 4,000 deficit. That's no small thing. That in like I think it was like a short space of time, like 50 years as well. So I was just like seeing that, and then obviously you see the obesity go up, and it's just grim. But I wanted to get your take on this. So like, what I remember when I was training one time, I was constantly getting asked. So I was training at literally a gym just down there, and it was the S&C for John Moore's football team. And every time I was training, the guy would always just be like, "Oh, how are you? Like, how are you feeling?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm all right." And like he'd constantly ask how I'm feeling. And then when I asked him, like, I was like, "Why are you always asking me how I'm feeling?" And he goes, "Oh, the rule of thirds. Are you familiar with the rule of thirds?"
No, I'm not.
So he said the rule of thirds is that like if you're feeling good 33% of the time or a third of the time, and then you feel impartial, like this is towards training. So then you feel impartial 33% of the time, and then you feel like shit 33% of the time. He goes, if you have that like sort of blend, he goes, then you're on the right track. He goes, if you're, you know, feeling too happy all the time, he goes, the training's too easy, like because you're enjoying it too much. If you're feeling like shit all the time, the training's too hard. And I just wanted to get your take on that. Like, what is what is your sort of blend when you're training and whatnot? What are your percentages? If you like this video so far, don't forget to drop a like, comment, and subscribe at Truth Temple Podcast.
It's interesting. That's very, very interesting. And I'd say there's been times in my life where the training has been like, I do feel like shit for more than 33% of the time. And I think that's when you need to reassess your training. Like the guy said, maybe you're overtraining, maybe you're doing the wrong things, or maybe you're not focusing on your technique as much. Or you're not just recovering as well. Like if there's other things going on in your life, then that could be taxing as well. I think people need to understand that like stress is one thing. Like a lot of people think stress from the gym and you put whether you're doing a 5K or whether you're having and you're going all out on that 5K, or whether you're having a really busy day in the office. Or whether you've just had an argument with your girlfriend or whatever, like that's all stress, and they're all the same. So like, there's only so much stress that you can have during like one period, and then you've got to spend time to recover from that stress. So, if there's times in your life where things like if you are feeling like shit within your training, then it might not be just your training that's like the problem. It might be other things. So, I try and minimize how many days, and I really focus on that, how many days I feel like shit. Obviously, there's going to be times where you need to feel like shit. Like if you're in an intense training block, like I always, with a friend, I was actually doing 100 miles, like running 100 miles, and one of my friends texted me, he was like, if it was easy, you wouldn't be doing it. Like
if it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Yeah. And it's just like you signed up for this. It's meant to be hard, and some like to get to the position where like not many people get to, you're gonna have to go through some hard stuff. So some days are going to be tough. Some days are, and you're not going to want to go, but you need to push through. But you've also got to listen to your body as well, because if you're pushing through for no reason and you're just feeling like shit, like I did it today, for example. I was meant to run 30 kilometers today, and
just the 30,
and I actually set off, and I felt like shit from the start. And I capped it at 20. I was like, me pushing another 10 kilometers. I'm not going to gain any extra fitness from that. Time on legs, I'll feel a little bit better, but the chances of that extra 10k potentially making me ill, especially I've had a couple of days traveling, a couple of days of bad sleep and stuff like that. Like it's just more stress that my body doesn't need. So sometimes you have got to cut it short, and you've just got to balance that. So you need to. It's all about knowing your body and making the mistakes of pushing it too far. Maybe getting, because your body will tell you if you push too far, or if you push, you will feel like shit all the time.
What's happened to you when that's happened, when you've pushed too far?
Slipping disc, slipping disc, but like getting ill. Like so some people tell me like they only get ill like once every 2 years. I'm like, I'm getting ill like 6 times a year. Like really? Sometimes I get ill
every 2 years.
every 2 years. So I'm like, there's something must be wrong if I'm getting ill this much. And normally it's because I'm on that fine balance, that fine line of training. Overtraining and like training so you feel like you've done enough, and then that overtraining, and sometimes I'll push over.
Your body's not recovered, so you're susceptible. Then, right?
So I'm learning that. I'm still learning like everyone else is. Like I'm still learning to kind of rest more, recover more. Take my hard days hard, but my easy days super easy. It's just a learning process.
So just one person I wanted to talk to you about was, obviously as an endurance athlete, I wanted to get your take on David Goggins. What are your thoughts on David Goggins?
So it's funny actually. David Goggins inspired me to get into ultra running.
Okay. Yeah.
So and marathon running. So I remember when he first ever went on Joe Rogan. And I started listening to it. I was actually on a run when I was listening to it, and then I was like, I'm going to sign up for a marathon after this. I was only 17 at the time, so I did the Manchester Marathon. I remember signing up, and I went into college doing my civil engineering course, and one of the guys he was teaching us for the DFE, Duke of Edinburgh Award, and his name was James, and he said, you won't be able to run a marathon. I was like. That just lit some fire and that was just like, just watched me.
The marathon was done there.
So anyway, went and did it. I think got like 3.5 hours, and then after that, then listened to David Goggins more and more. Signed up for my first ultra, which was 100k. Went and did that. That was the East Devon round down south, which was incredible. And then just kept on like signing up to doing hard stuff for him. What do I think of him right now? I think I feel sorry for him. I think he's definitely fighting some demons. I don't think he's happy. He's not a happy individual. And I think he doesn't need to push as hard as I think he's gone too far and too extreme. I remember watching him on the Moab, not last year, but the Moab 240, where it's 240 miler. And I remember, I think it was a couple of weeks before, he had like bad knees, or it might have been a couple of weeks before, a couple of weeks after. But anyway, he had bad knees, and he put a video of him on like getting inject like them. Taking out fluid from his knee, and the amount of fluid that took out.
It's not normal.
It's not normal, but like that's him putting that out online is kind of like making it okay for that. And that's just going to damage people. Like people, you know, you don't stay hard and train hard all the time. Get up at 4 a.m. to run, and then again later. Like that's, you don't see any elite athletes doing that. Go on. No, there is no elite athletes that are training at 4 a.m.
Well, I think that's what people forget when people talk about David Goggins. Obviously, coming from my background, I understand like you said, he's fighting demons. He's not a performer. He's just doing it because that's him. Like that, and that's his way of doing it. Like, have you read his book by any chance? Yeah, like reading his book and his childhood, and you're thinking to yourself, like, you know, I understand why he's doing it, because like it's like the occupying. And like, I think for me personally, like, I'm not a psychoanalyst, but I think that man needs to occupy himself, because if he doesn't, he's going to be in some serious shit. And people look at it and think, oh yeah, I need to do that because he's like this elite performer, like, which he is an elite performer, but he's not. People forget that he's not a competitor. Like, he doesn't, you know, he does race in these races, but he's not the best at what he does. He is literally just a person who puts his body through crazy stuff just because that's his cure to his, you know, his past and whatnot. But he is a fascinating individual. Like, I will admit, like, I've read both his books. Like,
they're incredible, the books, and like how motivated they get you.
Oh yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, but like I said, like, I'm doing the 100 mile because of him, thinking like, you know, I'm trying to build up to it.
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, he like, I thought, like, because I remember when he said about doing it, like, he'd never done anything. Like, I've played football and I've been active all my life. So for me, don't get me wrong, I'm not thinking it's going to be easy. But for me, I don't think it'd be as hard as it was for him, because he did it when he was like ridiculously heavy, wasn't he? Like, did it on broken feet because he was so heavy and all that sort of stuff. And reading, I was just like, it's just a joke. Like, it's just a joke of a guy.
How are you feeling for the 100 miler?
Like, to be fair, I'm waiting on a scan for my ankle, because like I said, like, at the minute I'm playing footy with my ankle constantly strapped up, and that is just something I hate doing. Like, I've always never really played with straps, always been fit, whereas at the minute I can't get through a game, but like, it's part of my livelihood. Like, I, you know, have to play. Like, not have to, but, you know, I'm like, it's one of them things. I can't sit there. It's one of them injuries where it's like a 4 out of 10 in terms of pain. So the pain's nothing, but then it's like you feel it after.
Have you seen a physio and stuff?
Yeah, it's like, I have a physio at football, and she's like referred me to this. She's referring me to this specialist to get this scan and whatnot. So, but I think she thinks it's like just a tendon, like it's been not detached, but like it's been slightly nicked at some point, and it's just healed in the wrong place. That's what it's most likely is, or something. So it's small, but like I did a 40k the other week, and like towards the end of it, it was hurting. I thought, you know, like, I'm all for pushing through pain, but I don't want to paralyze myself. Well, I don't want to fuck myself up like long term by doing this. Like, you know, David Goggins would be like, oh, just push through, but you know, I'm a footballer and I don't want to just put myself out for a year for the sake of a run.
Have you got like 100 miler in mind? Which one you want to do?
Yeah, well, I was literally
just going to do it.
Yeah. So I was thinking of just doing it literally down the canal from Leeds to Liverpool. It's like 160 miles, and I just do it like 2/3 of the way. But I was doing it with my sister. She's going to come on the bike and just carry my shit, and then I'll just go down. Just
sick. And why? What's the main reason for doing that?
Well, I'll do it for charity, obviously. Do it for men's mental health for a start. Like, I've had a few people. I've had like a mate of mine committed suicide like a few years ago, probably like a year ago. I can't really mention other people, but there's been different people in my life that have like committed suicide and whatnot. So it'd be for that mainly, but then obviously just something I've always wanted to do since I read David Goggins' book, just because I hate running, like whether it's 5k, 10k, 20k, like I hate it. Like I really have to force myself to do it. So I feel like for me, that's my that's my like extreme. Like as doing something. I mean, hate's a strong word, but it's severely uncomfortable for me. I'm not good at long distance running. I've always really disliked anything over 100 meters. I'm just like, nah. So for me, it's just that it's just that mental barrier. Obviously, do it for a good cause, and then just do it because that's my thing. Like people do these extreme sports, whereas that for me, that's my extreme sport. Like trying to push your body to do something that you really don't want to do. I think that just gives you a thrill that not a lot of things can give you. So that's probably my main motivation behind it. But talking of hardest obstacles, what has been the hardest obstacle, whether it be physical or personal for you, and how did you overcome that?
Physical. You're not gonna like this. It was the 100 bar.
Oh God!
So
that's the worst one you've done.
So right,
just dead quick. That was worse than the 11 HYROXs.
Yeah. So the 100 miler was. So it was that hard that once I finished it, I had no sense of happiness. I was like, I'm not happy I finished this. Like I was just, really? I just like was that done with running. I was like, I'm never ever running again. I'm not happy that I did this. It was a stupid mistake.
Really?
It was kind of, and I'm not gonna lie, it did ruin me for a couple of months after in terms of like my I was getting nosebleeds. I was getting kind of like red sores on my hands and stuff like this, and it was kind of like I'm not trying to put you off at all because it sounds like, but obviously everyone experiences it differently. But I think so. I did it quite close. So I did 10 marathons in 5 days, and then I had. I think 3 weeks later, I did a half marathon, and then 2 weeks later after that, I did this 100 miler, and it ended up being 116 miles because I got lost.
116.
116.
So were you doing it in 24 hours, by the way?
It was just a race. So,
right,
so it's just a race, as fast as I can. And it was, it was kind of like self-navigation and stuff like that as well. And obviously when you're tired.
You're all over. So did you run by yourself?
Ran by myself for 60 miles and then had a pacer for the last 40.
Right, okay.
But yeah, it was tough.
How long did it take you?
I think it took me 28 hours, I think.
Right, okay.
In total. So the aim was to do it in 24.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. And I won't be in a rush to do it again. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, I found my sweet spot is 50 kilometers with the ultra stuff. Like 50 kilometers is really good. I think after a couple of weeks, you're absolutely fine. You can go back performing. The thing I didn't like about like 100Ks, 100 milers was you just didn't feel yourself for kind of like 2 to 3 months after, in my opinion.
Right.
Now, like, I don't know how other people feel.
Yeah.
Have you spoke to a lot of people that have done like?
I've not spoken to a lot of people. I've watched loads of podcasts and stuff, but I've never spoke to someone and not been able to. But the thing is, I also don't want to research it too heavily of like, what can happen, because I feel like you almost like build that into you.
Yeah, but I think with them kind of like events, like you can't pull out, in my opinion. Unless you're literally cannot walk, which is very like there's pains, and then you can push through it. Like say David Goggins, like I feel like if you're signing up where it's a mindset challenge, then you push through no matter what. And that was kind of the mindset that I had. But there was times in the 100 miler where I was like, I'm done, I'm giving up, and it was like up to my pacer to then like say you're not fucking done. You're doing this. Like it was like I've come out here. I've done 30 miles with you throughout the night. And
we're doing the last 10.
We're doing the last 10 basically. And I'm like, fuck off. And then like so like you need them people around you. You do definitely need that. So I'd suggest that, and they do make a difference.
Yeah. I'll definitely have to do more research. I've got time. I've got 6 months, so
I love it. You're gonna smash it. And if you need any help, I'm always here.
100%. Get some tips from you. But how do you stay motivated? Obviously, you've had a few different things happen in your life, like in terms of you've had a few losses and you've had a few setbacks. How do you deal with that sort of loss or setback?
So I lost my dad just before lockdown. It was actually, and looking back, looking at it from now, it's funny. Like I'm glad that he went at the time that he went, because he would have hated lockdown. He would have absolutely. He would have he would have really, really struggled. And I wouldn't have liked him to witness that, if that makes sense. But I always think about him. That gives me motivation. Doing people that passed away proud, like, you know, making them proud. I always think about that, and that's like a big motivator for me. You just at the end of the day, if I can genuinely think, like my parents would be proud of me, if they've seen what I've done or whatever, then I'm happy.
Yeah, sometimes you have to go a bit deeper than the mind, don't you? You have to go to them like connections and whatnot.
For sure. What about yourself?
How do I deal with loss? I've never used to use it. Like having these questions bounce back at me. The same thing. Like I said, I've read a lot of different things of like how to, you know, reframe the mind and how to, like, you know, bounce back from things. And it's exactly what I just said of like, I always used to rely on like my mental toughness. Like people always used to think of, like, I don't want this to sound braggy, but they always used to think that, he's dead good at sport because he's physically gifted or he's technically gifted. Whereas for me, it was always a mentality thing of like, you know, I'm mentally stronger than someone. And I think it got to a point where like I couldn't rely on that anymore. Like it got to some points in different scenarios in my life where it wasn't enough to just say like, I'm better than this person or this. Like you had to sort of rely on like the why had to be bigger. Do you know what I mean? Rather than yourself. Like I always used to put it on myself and say like, you know, you need to do this for yourself. And it's almost like that battery just emptied and it needed to be bigger than that. And I think then you look to the close connections around you. So it's definitely, for me, it's like you said, of like thinking about them people. Like I'm lucky enough to still have my dad, for example, and my mum, and I have quite a big family. So like I draw on them to sort of think, you know, if they were like they're not always there to watch. Yeah. But I always put them there. Like, my dad comes and watches me play football quite a lot, to be fair. But even when he's not there, I almost like pretend he's there. Of just like, if he, like, you know, I've got to run back because I don't want my dad to see that I'm not running back, for example. And I just hold myself to a standard where it's as if, like, you know, I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders, but I thrive under that. I know a lot of people don't really like that, but I thrive under that in terms of thinking, I don't want to be seen as like a quitter or whatever.
So you'd prefer a crowd when you're watching?
100%, yeah.
Makes you work harder.
It's just not necessarily like, it's mainly people I care about though. Like, I'm not really asked about, you know, there being 10,000 people that don't care about me. It's mainly having them people there that care about you. Not that I need it, but I reframe my mind to think that they're there, almost to give me that extra, and that's always worked for me. Like I said, we always had values growing up as kids and whatnot. We'd always have to hold, like my dad we had this acronym, and it was spelled out DRAWS, and it was discipline, respect, attitude, work rate, sportsmanship. And my dad would always ask us, like when we come off a pitch or whatever we'd do, he'd always be like, "What do you think you didn't do today?"
That's hardcore. That is hardcore.
That was like the
wow.
I'm not angry, I'm disappointed speech. And you'd always have to go like, well, my attitude wasn't too great today. But I always stick to that of like, you know, stick to them values, and if you can come off whatever you're doing and think, like, do you know what, I hit those targets, then, you know, you can't do much else, whether it's win, lose, or draw. So that's what I always draw upon that. So a big talking point that I see a lot of people talking about it in like on social media and in the modern day of people regretting things a lot. Like, what's your thoughts on regret? Like, do you have a lot of regrets in life?
Do I have a lot of regrets?
Are you a person that regrets?
No, not really. No, I don't really. Like, things happen. It's weird. I don't really regret much because you can't change it. So there's no point thinking about it. But I tend to be, and it's a little bit different, but I tend to be quite embarrassed of stuff that potentially done like when I was younger and stuff like that. Like, right. I think even if you look down, like even if I looked a year ago at the post that I was doing on Instagram, I'd be like, oh, don't show me that. Do you know?
I know what you mean,
or the haircut that you had, or whatever it was. Like, I'm always kind of, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm always kind of looking like. Yeah, there's very few things that I'm very, very proud of earlier on, like if that makes sense. Like,
I would say that's a good thing though, because it shows that you're sharpening yourself constantly. Like, I feel like if you look back and thought, I'm so proud of the person I was, then it shows that you've not come very far. That's how I perceive it.
And that's probably what I'll probably say as well. I don't know what you think about that. Like, do you know when you're, if someone showed me a video of me on a night out from 3 years ago, I'd be like, why are you showing me that? Like, I don't do that anymore, or whatever it is. What about yourself?
No, I don't regret anything. Like, again, like from the reading I've done and things like that, like it's something I've had to learn. Like, I always used to regret things and stuff like that, but I have no regrets at all, because like you said, when you look back, it's like I think that feeling of thinking, oh God, I can't believe I used to do that. I think that's a good thing, because like I said, it shows that you've come far. Like I said, I feel like if you'd look back at whatever that you were doing 5 years ago and think, oh God, I can't believe I used to be that good.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a fucking sad thing. Like, it's one thing that I hate. Like, I don't say it a lot because it is quite like ruthless. But when people say like, oh, I love it when I used to be able to do that. Like, I think that's a sad day. When you look back and you can say to yourself, oh, well, I used to have that 6-pack. Oh, I used to be good at that. Like, obviously that's going to happen to us all. But if that happens to you when you're 27 and you're like, fucking hell, mate,
gotta struggle.
That's a rough few years that you've got ahead of yourself. And I always advise people, like, you know, try and be like I said, I'm a teacher and stuff, so I always try and tell the kids and stuff, be the best version. It sounds like dead cliche, but it is true. Like, be the best version of yourself every day, and that if you can look back and say like, oh, well, I'm better now than I was back then. That's all you care about.
Yeah, whereas, I think that's really good. The probably only one thing that I'd like regret or want to change is like whenever I've like upset someone, I try not to upset anyone at all. Obviously, there's sometimes where you potentially have to upset someone, but it's for the greater good. But like, if you were just purely in the wrong, like, I probably wouldn't regret it, but like, it would be a regret. It'd be a wish. Oh, I wish I didn't do that. Do you know, if you acted a dick to someone, or if you had a fight with someone that wasn't needed, or do you know, if you're just showing off or whatever, or like, do you know, I think I think them things you probably regret, but
I think I know what you mean. Like, it's more of like, we were kind of referring to actions, like whether you regret your actions, whereas you're kind of talking about like your relations. Yeah, I think that's a deep one, that, because like some people, like I was literally listening to a thing today, and it was Dwayne Johnson talking about his dad, like losing his dad, and he said like they always had a decent-ish relationship, and then 3 weeks before he died, they had a massive argument and didn't speak, and then he died, and it's shit like that. That would be hard to be like, oh, I don't regret it. Because that's a different level, because it's like, you know, a relation. Yeah,
and just pure bad luck. Like,
exactly.
Because everyone goes through them stages where you fall out with people, and if something bad happens to that person, once you fall out, like you will. Well,
then even then, like, I feel like even though it's brutal, it's like you've learned that lesson going forward, so then it wouldn't happen with your mum, for example, or with your, you know, if you had siblings and all that.
Do you ever? Like, me personally, like, I try not to be on bad terms with anyone. Like, I'm massive. Like, what about yourself? Like, is there any relationships that you know, you're happy that they're not happy, but you're okay with them being not the best relationships?
See, like, as I've got older, like, my relationships have gone for like closer to the point where like I have a very tight knit group now. Like, those that are my mates are like, you know, I'm very close to. Because it's one of them, like, when you have a lot of friends when you're younger, you think they're your friends, but then as soon as there's the distance there, you realize very quickly like who are and who aren't your friends. So I really focus on who I spend my time with, and those that I do spend my time with are very, very close. Like, I don't, if there's relationships like degrading over time, like, I'll just let it go, and I'll be like brutally honest with it and just be like, listen, it's not that. Not that we'll have that half the time you don't even need the conversation because it's gone. But no, I don't force myself to like keep in contact with people. Like, it's nice to have a chat. I'm not saying I'd ignore them. Yeah. But I wouldn't be like, oh, let's, like, I hate that as well. Like,
but if you fell out with someone, would you try and like, even like, would you become civil with them before like leaving that relationship? If that makes sense, do you know?
Like, if it was on the cards and like, you know, you could say like, oh, listen, like, let's sort of put it behind us, but like leave on good terms, then of course. But I wouldn't be like, I don't really give a shit what anyone thinks, to be honest. Like, if someone didn't want to do that and then they wanted to like disassociate themselves, like, I'd be like, that's fine. Like, I wouldn't lose sleep over that. However, I'd be equally as fine if they said, oh, let's leave on good terms. I'd be, brilliant. Yeah. Like, obviously I'd rather have that than have the other, but if they turn into someone who doesn't like you, then I wouldn't lose any sleep over it. What type of like sacrifices have you made? Obviously, to get like, you've come so far in such short space of time. But obviously that comes with sacrifice. Like, what kind of things have you sacrificed to get to the level that you're at now?
I think balance with life. Like, I don't think balance and like success is in the same sentence. Yeah. Like, balance with life. Do you know, having there's a couple of things that you balance in your life. There's kind of your work, whatever that is. There's your relationships, and then there's kind of like yourself. Yeah, and I'd probably put like competing and stuff. For me now, it could be work, it could be a hobby, work, like, same thing really. And that's had to come up here.
Yeah.
And then my relationships, whether it's with my girlfriend, whether it's with friends, whether it's with family, has probably suffered a little bit more. Because, like I said, looking after yourself and, being obsessed with something to become the most successful that you can be at that, like, needs to take priority over that. So like, relationships have suffered. I don't go out as much anymore. Like, my friendship group is very, very small. Like, I know a lot of people, but again, I'm pally with people, but I'm not like close. I'm not going out with friends every single week. Like, I'm just not doing that, because again, that would affect the other things, and I wouldn't be able to recover as well, or I wouldn't be able to sleep as well. Or with my girlfriend, we're kind of working it out with my girlfriend, like, in terms of, so Emily, we've been together literally since we're 17, so we've been together 8 years now. So we both kind of developed, like, when we first got together, she was going to uni and I was civil engineering.
Right.
Now we're both personal trainers. So, and Emily was a makeup artist before that, and then she got into personal training. Now, and now I very rarely do any coaching. Like, I do a bit of coaching, a couple of hours a day, but I'm more kind of performing, being an athlete, and working for brands and stuff. So, like, having that stress and like moving throughout all that, we've just had to like learn with each other. Me being away a lot more, her, maybe coming with me, maybe not, maybe just doing a coaching or whatever. Like, it's very hard to manage, like, the change, if that makes sense.
Does it align quite well?
No, it does. Yeah. I think we're learning more and more, but we've had our fair share of arguments and stuff, and like anyone, but I think it's potentially well, it depends how you look at it. Is if you start a relationship when you know what you're getting in for, then it's like you know that person does X and X and X.
The expectations are there.
The expectations are there. Whereas if I was a completely different person when I first started like dating Emily to what I am now, so she's got to either like accept that, and luckily she has accepted that, and I've accepted that on hers. But like, it's very hard to do that, I think, over time when like this person's so different to when you started, because you're doing something completely different. Your priorities are different, and everything is different.
Yeah. It's like I heard a thing the other day, and it kind of sums to what you were saying. It's like when you pour out one cup into one, like you're constantly losing. Wherever your focus is at, like you might think that it's thriving at the time, but then there's something in the background that's suffering because of that. But that's why it's all more important. As I've got older, I've realised that like it kind of relates to what we were saying about the friends. Like, you only have a set amount of time. Like, I know we're young and stuff like that now, but I hate the fact, like, my granddad, he passed away like probably a couple of months ago. And I remember one thing he said to me a few years ago, and he said, like, just don't waste your time. Like, just don't waste your time. And like, it was as simple as that. But for me, I just took it as like, I just felt like I was wasting my time in terms of like them relationships that were hanging on. You were always the person trying to outreach to people, doing stuff that's just like hedonistic, and you're doing it for pleasure and stuff, like, and it just, there's no value in it at all. And I think it's the same thing of like, it makes that process a lot easier of balancing somewhat, because I've got the same thing with the work-life balance at the minute. You don't feel balanced.
You don't feel balanced at all. And I feel once you do feel balanced, there's probably something not right. Like, there's a great quote that I read the other day. So like, if you feel in control, you're not going fast enough.
Yeah.
And it's kind true. Of like, if you want to be successful, if you want to be the best at what you do or whatever, like, you're never ever going to feel in control. Yeah. And it's kind of that in control, meaning that the balance kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I was just going to ask about you. Like, how do you find that? Like, what sacrifices have you had to make? Because obviously, like you say, you're doing the podcast, you're a teacher, you're obviously a semi-pro footballer as well.
Yeah.
Like, how are you finding doing all that?
Well, like you said, for me right now, like, obviously in your 20s and stuff, like, there has to be some level of it's unbalanced, to be fair. Like, I don't really go on holiday much. Like, I've been on one holiday in the last 5-6 years or so.
Seriously?
Yeah. So like that. I think the last time.
Are you the same?
Similar. I'm a bit more, to be fair. I've got a couple laptops.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, but not to the same level. No.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry, two in the last 5 years.
All right, it's all right.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Imagine that.
But yeah, just like, it's not very balanced, but I'd rather have that now. Like, I always think, I keep thinking like, oh, you know, one day it'll get to the balance. But the first thing that comes to my mind when you said, when you have that balance, the first thing that comes to my mind was that, you wouldn't be going much play. Like as soon as you're balanced, I've found with like, you know, you're seeing your friends and you're doing and you think that it's all perfect, you're not actually going anywhere. You just you don't go anywhere until you've upped the sort of the productivity, if you will. But yeah, like I don't like people have asked me that a few times, like especially since I've started the podcast, like how do you balance it all? And the honest truth is that you don't really, like you've just got to pour into one cup for as long as possible. For me, at least that's what I'm doing. And then, you know, when the time comes that you do have to keep your priorities right, though, like my family always come first, you know, like if it came to it, you know, I'd be there for my family. Like it wouldn't be a case of, I'm doing this and this is only what I'm doing. I'm doing this until my actual priorities, you know, need my attention. That's the way I sort of view it. Whether that's healthy or not, I couldn't tell you, but I think that's just the phase of life I'm in. You know, I'm like relatively young still, verging on my prime, single, so like I'm just doing the hard yards now. So then maybe later on, it won't be as hard on me. But
do you feel like, it sounds stupid, a lot of people when they're working as hard as you, like they feel like they're just working. Do you feel like you're living as well, doing the stuff that you're doing?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
So like, do you enjoy what you do every day?
Yeah.
So if you enjoy it, then like, what?
Oh yeah, that's
like,
something.
there's
Like,
no.
Well, that's something that people have said, especially with the drinking. When I go out and obviously I'm not drinking, people are like, it's so weird when you go out and like they're like, fucking hell, they look at you more weird because you don't drink.
Yeah,
if
it's
like,
mad, the culture, isn't it?
Yeah, the culture is bizarre. And I read a book on the not drinking just to sort of help me as well. And it literally says that in it before I'd even had that experience. And when I had the experience, it was like, it is mad of like, and the guy puts in like a paragraph, he says, they look at you in this way of like, why aren't you intoxicating your body? And like, why aren't you like, do you like all this like lists that all the negative effects? And I don't want to look at it too sad because it serves a purpose. But,
yeah, it's
you know,
a confidence booster.
But no, like I don't need any of that. Like it doesn't give me any pleasure. Like a few times people have said like, you work so much. But sometimes I feel like the more you work, you feel like you're not working enough. Do you ever have that?
Yeah, I think if you enjoy it, a lot of people that, you know, I'm not saying this to everyone because like going out on the weekends is fun and it is very fun, but it's more fun if your Monday to Friday is shit.
Yeah.
Like, do you know, or if you're not working that much in the week and then you're wanting something to do, whereas you're probably, if you get a couple of days off, you're probably like, I'm going to catch up on sleep, or I'm going to like relax.
Yeah, the boys, I'm on the back some, baby.
Like, do you know what I mean? You're like, I need to chill because I've been so hectic or whatever. But like, if you're like, I found that literally from moving from that 9-to-5 job where I was literally going out every weekend to then going to kind of like full-time PT. Like I was then like picking up, doing more work on Saturdays and Sundays. And I was like, it's more, I think, if you can make your work kind of like your lifestyle instead and think of it as a lifestyle, then it's not, well, I find it enjoyable. Yeah,
like I've always struggled wrapping my head around like the 9-to-5 culture. Like I worked at Cafe Stella, I'm not sure if you remember.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
And I remember being there and like, it was just like, that was before I went to university, like throughout college. And I remember just like, you know, I was there every Friday, Saturday, sometimes a Sunday, and the same people just rolling.
They're still there now, you know.
Yeah, I bet they are. And
it's closed, but
I
think it's closed, isn't it, Cafe Stella? Is it still open?
I don't know. I've not been there in so long.
Wow.
Yeah. But I used to see them coming in, and I knew then, and I was 17. I remember thinking, I can't do this. I couldn't do what they're doing. It's just the same week, like Monday to Friday, shit job. Come in. No, not. I don't want to put them down, but I just knew it wasn't for me. I just thought, you know, I need something a bit more substantial than that.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like, them people are probably earning
hard
more
workers.
than us. They're probably earning more than us.
Yeah,
They probably don't like the job, but they're probably earning more than us.
And that's fine.
And
like I said, I'm not shitting on anyone. Like, that is perfectly fine for most people. Most people just love Monday to Friday, a few kids, go out on a Friday night, Saturday night, whatever. And that's fine. I just knew that I was just different. Like, I didn't get any sort of good feeling from that. Do you know what I mean? But I was reading a thing the other day, and it was talking about success philosophy, and I come across an interesting passage, and it was talking about like for a person to be successful, the only thing they need in life is that one person. So like, who would you say that one person was for you?
To become successful.
That really drove your success.
Oh, are you talking like role models or like just people in
like
your
a
life?
role model,
Role model. Because I probably have a couple of different ones. Like in terms of support, like Emily is the best support I could ever ask for, and she's, she comes to all the events. She she sorts out food, sorts out, and she kind of helps me perform at my best. And she'll take a little bit of leeway. Say, for example, she'll coach a class for me if I'm not there, and she'll do a bit of my work if I'm tired, or if I'm if I'm stressed or whatever, and she'll help me that way. So in terms of that, like, she kind of keeps me grounded as well. But in terms of kind of like role models, then probably George Heaton, who luckily enough I've become really good friends with him. But he owns Represent. He's literally the hardest worker I've ever known, and within the field of kind of like social media and stuff, he's never put a step wrong, if that makes sense.
Right.
Never done anything controversial, never done anything kind of, and I think that's a good role model that I want to look up to in terms of the work that I do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, just generally, is the hardest worker ever. Like, he's and it made me laugh before when you was like talking about I think it was Elon Musk, and you were saying no one would want to be in his shoes.
Yeah.
I see that with George. Like,
okay.
George, like, everyone thinks, you own £100 million clothing brand, like, you're living in LA, you must be living a life, you've got Rolls Royce, stuff like this. You can do whatever you want. And I think it's definitely not like that. He still works harder than anyone.
Yeah.
Two, what he thinks about is he thinks about, I employ 120 people. I've got 120 families that I need to look after.
Yeah.
And if the business doesn't work, it's on my head. And the stress of that, like, outweighs everything, in my opinion. And people would be soon to swap their lives back if they took it on his life, because like the amount, like, I have more freedom than him, and he owns his own bloody company. Yeah, like, it's crazy. Like, but I also look up to him because I could never do that. Yeah. But like, he's just incredible, and he's been such a good mentor to me, and just in every way of kind of like business and kind of like just like morals as well, and everything else.
He's like a by the book kind of guy.
Yeah, and he preaches hard work.
Sounds very much like I was listening to Dana White, and he was saying exactly what you're saying. George said, if like, when you run your, like, people always say like, I want to be self-employed for my own company. He goes, when you run your own company, you don't have any days off. Like, he goes, you're just round the clock busy. So like, I've understood as I've got older, like, to not necessarily envy people like that, because you don't understand the hard yards that they're putting in behind the scenes to get where they are. Like,
he literally moved to LA to work more. So like, America, it never stops. America, like, Saturday, Sunday, they don't have days off. Like, he came back the other week and he was like, I'm at Tesco on it was a Sunday. He was like, I'm at Tesco at 8:30 and it's not open. Is this the medieval times? It was like, why is Tesco not open at 8:30 a.m. on a Sunday? Yeah. And he's like, I was like, shit, you don't even realize that. Like, you just think, that's the norm. Like, you have Sunday off and you just, lounge about, or if the streets are literally clear until about 10 a.m. on Sunday.
On Sunday, everyone's picking up like their roast dinner stuff at like 12 o'clock.
Yeah. Whereas like, literally, America's non-stop, and that's one of the reasons he moved over there.
Because he wanted to be part of that culture.
Just because it's crazy. But
So just going back, obviously you mentioned your partner Emily. Like, just want to reiterate, like, sort of get your point on like how important has she been? Obviously, you said you've been together for 8 years. How important has she been on your like sort of journey from being an engineer into obviously being a
I think she's very kind of like level-headed. If I'm making a mistake, if she thinks I'm making a mistake, she'll like out it before I do make the mistake.
Right.
Whether that's like whatever it is, whether that's writing a social media post and I say the wrong stuff, or to kind of like whether I'm taking on too much work, whether I'm not pulling my weight with work or whatever. Like, she'll hold me accountable, which is pretty good. I love that obviously about her, but like her being there to support, and her family's like really good as well. Like, I'm from a very small family, so to have that exposure to a larger family, like as you know yourself, you said that you've got a big family. Like, it's pretty good. Like not everyone has the opportunity for that. Yeah. So it's nice.
It must be quite nice to obviously come from that environment where you probably didn't grow up with many people around you to obviously see that. What kind of benefits do you think they offered you?
I think a whole benefits. Like a lot of people, I'd probably say a lot of people who are lonely, like or don't speak to a lot of people, like you can start to see that all the time, if that makes sense.
What you identify that in other people?
In other people, yeah. So like common traits, like it's funny they talk about themselves all the time because they're just spending
they're just with themselves.
They're just with themselves all the time. So like when they speak to people, they just want to talk about what they've been doing or what they're and it's quite that's kind of like a trait and like I think having people around you all the time like stops you from doing that.
Yeah.
You know, having a group of mates, because if you was out with your group of mates and you just talked about yourself all the time, they'd tell you shut up.
Yeah,
and
get it in the neck, wouldn't you?
You know, you get it. Yeah, so it's kind of just that's one of the reasons. But obviously, just the whole family atmosphere. You know, any occasion, you know, there's always something going on. There's never that kind of thought about, oh, what am I going to do at the weekend? There's always something going on. You know, one part of the family is doing something or hosting something or whatever. Yeah. But likewise, I think there's downsides to having a big family as well. There's more arguments. There's more people that get ill. There's more people that, you know, if there's something up within the family, if you got,
it upsets everyone.
Yeah. If you got a family of 20 strong, there's probably one person that's not having the best time. But everyone feels that.
Yeah. No. Right.
And whereas if you've got a family of 3 of you. And if you're all healthy, which there's probably more chance of 3 of you being healthy than 20 of you being not healthy at the same time, then you're not going to run into many troubles. It's
a very only child way to look at it.
I know it's quite interesting, but like it's one of them.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you have like a specific quote or like a mantra that you live by, like something that you really draw back on?
I think probably like one, if you say that you can do something, do it. Like, you know, don't say something that you're not going to do. Like, be by your word. But also probably of recent times, like do everything to 100%, like the best of your ability.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
I always go off mistakes, so like not in a negative way though. Like you're always going to make mistakes, but it's not like you're not what happens to you. You're how you like respond to it is what I've always been taught. Like,
okay, cool.
No matter what happens to you, like just brush it off, keep your head up, and then like, you know, just get on with it and just learn from it. Like I've always been taught to be a very reflective person. Like
take the positives out of everything.
Yeah. Like just like reflect constantly and just say like, you know, why things happened. Like what have you learned from it? It's just something that I've always drawn. Like it come from my dad. Like I said, he was a very, very critical man back in the day, but I always thrived off that. Like I always felt like when I didn't have that, I always felt like I needed it, so I had to almost give it to myself. But no, I think you can be overcritical, obviously, but I think that nice, healthy balance of being critical is very important to draw lessons upon going forward. I think that's one thing that is a dying breed, especially like talking to kids these days of, you know, giving them. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't speak to them like my dad used to speak to me, but you know, they can't take criticism. It's crazy, like how everyone's a winner nowadays, and you know, like it's okay to lose and all that sort of stuff. Like I feel like, you know,
there's like a blame culture.
Yeah, well, it's just like a lack of accountability culture of like, you know, it's okay that you're not good enough and all that sort of stuff. Well, I'm not saying like do the complete opposite.
Do you actually, being a teacher, do you actually see that a lot?
All the time, mate. All the time. Like I get it, like it's hard, but I'd rather learn that lesson now than get to when they're 17, 18, when in a job industry or whatever they're doing.
Why am I not getting a job?
Yeah, why am I not getting a job, or why am I not getting a promotion? Well, it's because you've promoted mediocrity the whole life, and that it's okay to lose all the time. Yeah. Like it's okay to lose, but don't promote it as if it's like a positive thing. Do you know what I mean? Like turn it around as a positive, spin it as a positive. Listen, you lost, that's fine, but this is what we're going to do next time. We're going to get at it better. That's the way I see it. And it's, I don't know, it's one of them. It's a controversial thing to say nowadays. What are your thoughts on
that? If you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, exactly. That's something you always say.
If you're not first, you're fucking last. But
second place is first.
Yeah, exactly. But and yeah, you should always aspire to be first. What I have been thinking lately, and I've been doing a bit of like a lot of other people have said this as well. I was listening to podcasts like before actually, and the climb to the top is always better than being at the top.
Yeah, 100%.
It was actually Michael Johnson, the sprinter. He was on the performance podcast, but he was explaining like, do you know, having that pressure of having to turn up to Olympics and like retain your title is a lot more
better.
pressure.
Yeah.
He said it's a lot more pressure and a little bit like not as enjoyable as being the underdog, wanting to become the best. So like. Yeah, obviously, like you know, second place, you are still a loser.
Yeah.
But as long as you're still progressing, as long as you're still aspiring for that first place, then it's the people that aren't aspiring for that first place that like.
Yeah.
But then again, you probably got to understand that not everyone can.
Yeah, of course. But then it should. But the thing is, those people that can't, they just can't in that one thing.
Yeah,
like, that's okay. Like if you're not the best footballer, you're not going to win a football tournament. You might be a good rugby player though, and there's always that finding your niche sort of thing. So that's one thing I'm like trying to push. Of like, you know, this isn't clearly for you, but that's fine. Like there's no problem with that at all.
What would your opinion be that, say for example, your team, if you got promoted and then you was in a more difficult league, and then you did a season there, you was on the brink of relegation, and then you moved up to like 7th the second season, would you be buzzing? Or would you not? Or would you be like,
yeah. Like, well,
maybe that's just a winner's. You've just got a winner's mentality.
Yeah. Well, interesting.
Because some people would be like,
yeah, you'd be buzzing that you didn't get relegated, but I wouldn't be. Like,
I know.
It's a bit weird,
but
you wouldn't be like, oh, like fucking cheering from the rooftop. Like, it's funnily enough, like I played for a team the other year and we avoided relegation, and they were celebrating like we'd won the fucking league, and I was just like, yeah, like great, but fucking hell, we're 18th lads, like like relax. But yeah, like I don't know what that is, but I just hate losing. So like I think that's it. It may be a bit of bitterness. I'm not perfect. Like it probably is a bit of bitterness, bit of ego. But the last thing I'd be doing is being like fucking like we're fucking mint because we avoided relegation. No. Just a few quick questions. So, what are the top 3 tips that you have for people like yourself who are sort of like, well, not as prominent as yourself, but what are the top 3 tips for growing a social media?
Growing a social consistency with posts. So I always got told like just post as much as you can post consistently. So whether that's 2 posts a week, whether that's 7 posts a week, like don't be doing 7 one week, 1 the next week, 7 the other, like because people see that as like being desperate,
lazy
people,
as well.
Well, either lazy or like I think if you post too much, people are like desperate. Or people, you come across as desperate to people, if that makes sense. Like a lot of people, they won't post much, and then they'll release something, a product, or they'll release their coaching or whatever, and then they'll put 50 stories on that day of the coaching, and then they'll put posts on it and stuff. And I just don't think that's the best way to go about it. Just be consistent.
Yeah.
Secondly, not many people care about like you promoting stuff and selling stuff, or like so like that's not going to help you grow your socials really. So you've got to have a fine balance of that. Like,
don't do too much.
Yeah. So for example, some brands that I work with, like they'll tell me to push some stuff, and I'll push some of it, but some of the stuff, like if it's too salesy, then I'll change it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to come across as like I'm, people are paying me to put this post on or whatever.
You come across as like control, don't you?
But if you think about kind of like growing social media, like if you think about engagement of people, like you can either educate people, you can either entertain people, or you can put aesthetic stuff on. So like they're your 3 options. So I like to at least have 2 of them in kind of like a post. So whether it's education and entertainment, so it might be a little bit funny, but it might be educating.
Yeah.
It might be you might have a post where it's just one of them.
Yeah, because I've seen them posts you do where like you post like the exercise plan, like regime that you've done, and like what the benefits are. And stuff.
So you see whether it's my or like it might be a reel of me running, but it's like in an aesthetic place. Yeah. But I'll always put something educational within the caption.
Yeah.
Because like I can't not, because if then it's not going to get engagement. And it's funny how Instagram works like that, or any social media. But yeah, and then I'd probably say professional content, or a mixture of professional content and iPhone content. Like Instagram doesn't like it if all your stuff's professional. Instagram doesn't like it if it's all iPhone. Like you need a bit of both. So like investing within like a videographer or something, like which, especially from the industry that I was in PT industry. If, say, for example, you're earning a decent amount, an average wage for a personal trainer, and then you say, oh, you need to take £500 of that or £1,000 of that a month to go and get professional content, and then you've got to spend 6 hours making the professional content.
Yeah.
People are like, fuck that. I'll have £1,000 extra just by not doing that.
Yeah.
But like, that's the stuff that you need. That's the time and that's the investment that you've got to put in to do the professional content, potentially for it to pay off. And I'm not going to say it's going to pay off overnight. It's not. It's going to. I think I've got 1,500 posts that I've done. You know, if you post that one a day, that's 5 years of solid posting. Like, I've probably done two for the last year. I think, you know, I'll post 500 posts. I've done 500 posts in the last year, which is 2 a day on average. Yeah. And you've got to think about every single one of them. So it depends if you, how much you care about it, really.
Interesting. And then another quick one: top 3 foods that everyone should eat.
Oh, I like that one. Depend. So if I wasn't to take anyone's diet into consideration, I'd say steak. It's very, very nutritious. Eggs, again, very nutritious, high in protein, high in fats. And then I'd probably say 3's very hard. I'd say top 5, but 3.
Go on, do us
top 5. Okay. I'd say bananas. Bananas are a great source of carbohydrates. Great for working out. Honey. I think honey's again.
I'm on it.
And then I'm a big fan of milk. Whereas like people, obviously if you're lactose intolerant, take that one out. But like if there's been studies been done and they still don't understand why, but like milk helps you recover better than like a protein shake. It helps you recover like whole milk, like after a game or whatever. It'd help you recover better. And obviously it's like the perfect balance of protein, carbohydrates. It's got electrolytes in there, and obviously it's hydration as well.
So a lot of people don't realize that it's actually more hydrating than water as well. Like not many people know that.
So like having a glass of whole milk, like it's the best thing that you can do after training.
Yeah, I drink. We literally go through so much milk, like looking daft.
What about yourself? What would you top 3?
Here at the Truth Temple Podcast, we've got a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. Please help us out and subscribe at Truth Temple Podcast. Yeah, I think I'd probably honey's in there. Like honey's a fucking. I live off that shit. But honey, like any sort of meat, like steak, obviously, like based on the cost chicken, and whatnot. But chicken, you can't go wrong with chicken. I'd have put rice in there as well.
Okay,
I like a lot of rice, but then eggs as well, like loads of eggs. Yeah. And then 5. What would I have done for 5? Probably done sweet potato.
Would you?
Love a sweet potato.
Sweet potato. That might have some vitamin C as well. I think going on my diet, you might get a bit of scurvy. But I think you need some vitamin C in there as well. Maybe a multivitamin thrown on top.
Yeah, exactly. So out of curiosity, why honey, by the way?
Honey. So obviously sugar gets a bad rep. I know honey is sugar. Like it is, but it's just a more natural form. So I just substituted everything that I have. I do have quite a sweet tooth, so like in my coffees I'd have sugar, but I just think honey tastes nicer. It's funny. I don't know why I do this, and everyone slates me for this. I have honey on my eggs. Scrambled eggs. I'm on that. Scrambled eggs.
Before. Sometimes maple syrup as well.
I just think it's like I like that. But it's just a more natural condiment, if that makes sense. Yeah. So like where you'd have ketchup, or where ketchup is super processed, it's got preservatives in or whatever. Like honey, just naturally. Yeah.
Are you onto the Manuka honey? Have you had that before?
Oh, I can't afford that.
I've tried it a few times. I'm like, I can't sustain this. Like you have a few spreads of it. You go halfway through the jar, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. So it's is it from Manuka?
It's like from a specific type of bee as well. Right, it's just dead expensive stuff.
But they get the pollen from a certain type
from a certain type of tree or something. I don't know how it works. I'm not actually researched it properly, but it's like the proper stuff, isn't it? And then last quick one. Top 3 exercises everyone should do in the gym.
Oh, so I'd stick with compound exercises. A Bulgarian split squat. I think that's absolutely great. It'll sort out your imbalances. I know it is the worst, but
it is horrible.
Yeah. A Bulgarian split squat. You could either do Bulgarian split squat or front foot elevated split squat. I'd probably say a pull up and a dumbbell overhead press or like a Z press where you sat down. Yeah, 3 exercises that require a bit of core stability. Unilateral, and you got push, pull, and the legs.
Yeah, I like that.
What about yourself?
I'd probably said some sort of squat. So Bulgarian split squats is a good one, or just a general.
Yeah.
Free. It has to be free weight though. Too many of these Smith machines about these days. Pull up. I definitely agree with that. And then I'd have probably said like a tricep dip as well.
Nice.
I do like a tricep dip, and weighted as well.
Yeah,
you can vary it. You can do different angles and that. I'm big on them. So just like rounding off with a few last questions. So obviously coming from humble beginnings, obviously we're from the same town, same high school, all that sort of stuff. Did you foresee where you'd end up like as of today, all them years ago?
No, not one bit. I didn't think I'd be anywhere near this. Like going back to school, like in terms of kind of like my background, like I was bang average at football. I was an okay runner. Like I got to kind of like Wigan schools and kind of like county schools. But I remember going to I came 6th in Manchester schools, Greater Manchester, and then we went to nationals. And I remember in my age group, so like 1 year age group, there was 400 people completing, and I came like 350th.
Really?
And I thought running is not for me.
Yeah.
So from going from that to like doing like half decent at HYROX, like I didn't think I had the athlete in me, if that makes sense. But I think just if you become obsessed with something, like anything can happen.
Yeah.
And I think you just got to believe that anything can happen.
100%.
And keep pushing. What about yourself?
I've got a story for you that I want to tell you that I've been dying to tell you. So like I remember. Do you remember the cross country run we used to do at school?
Yeah.
Like two laps of the backfield and a big ass lap of thing. And then you finished with one more, didn't you? And I remember like a few of my mates were off, and I wasn't a great like long distance. I was good at it, but like I don't know if you know like Adam Smith and a few James Corden and people like that were better than me at it. And they weren't in this one day. We were doing this cross. I was like, it's my year. This. Anyway, I've smoked this race, got a good time, and then I remember I was in year 10 because you're 2 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And I was in year 10, I got a decent time. It must have been like a 6-7K, that maybe, something like that. And then I remember Mr. Thompson coming to me and going, oh, like, you did? Yeah, he goes, yeah, you smashed that. He goes, but you got beat. I'm thinking, who the fuck? Like, no one was with me. I was like, what are you on about? He goes, this lad in year 8. He goes, this Jake Dearden, he fucking smoked you by about a minute. I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, fuck, there's no way. And then a few weeks, and then it was sometime in that year, and he goes, we had this football game. And like obviously I was the captain and stuff, so you're picking the team, aren't you? And we had a load of dropouts this one day, and we were like struggling with players. And he goes, "What about Jake Dearden?" And I was like, which one is he? And then well, I've seen you by that point, so then I'm trying to see you on the AstroTurf. And then this ball comes to you, and you like booted this ball over the fence. He goes, "Fucking no chance."
Love that.
He goes, yeah, but he can run. I goes, Thompson, we need a lot more than running, mate. I goes, year 8. I goes, like, we're not doing that. But
No, I love that.
I probably regretted that because I thought, that's probably a regret. I thought that'd have been a fucking, to see what that would have been like and then having this conversation.
No, well, there was obviously a couple of people that like play for Bolton and stuff in our year and stuff. I don't know how they're doing now, but obviously we had some good people. And I wasn't even the fittest then. Do you know, I remember Matthew Marsh, he used to absolutely smoke me on the 12-minute run.
Oh, yeah.
So, do you know the Cooper test?
On the Astro.
Yeah, and it was like 3,200 meters was like an A-star or whatever in 12 minutes. And I remember, and that was 12 laps, I think. And it was 16 laps. 16 laps. I remember like Matthew Marsh getting like 19 or something. Mad.
Really?
Yeah, insane. But yeah.
That's crazy. So obviously just rounding off, so where can people find you?
So they can find me most predominant on Instagram, so it's just my name _ at my name _ so Jake Dearden _ and then I am trying out YouTube at the moment as well.
Right, okay.
So I think I'm 11 episodes in.
Decent.
Just trying it out with that, trying to
just like vlogging and stuff.
So with the videographer, but trying to educate and document my journey, but trying to educate as many people as possible. So that's just my name on YouTube, so Jake Dearden.
Brilliant. And then what's next for you then?
Next for me, so I've actually just qualified with the time that I just got. I've just qualified for the Elite 15,
yeah.
Qualifiers, and that's in 3 weeks' time in Amsterdam. So that'll be my next race. I have got the Berlin Marathon this weekend as well.
You've got a marathon, haven't you?
Yeah, so yeah, I need a week off, but
well, no weeks off.
No days off. But what about yourself?
Yeah. Well, just keep grinding out a few. We're going more into like the one-to-ones like this, doing a bit more professional one-to-ones and that. But yeah, just carry on the season, get this ankle seen to, and then plan like start a charity for that 100-miler. Start training for that, like seriously, like as soon as the ankle's fit.
Incredible. How many of these are you doing? Like, how often do you do?
So podcast? So like it's kind of varied, to be fair. It's obviously dependent on guests and whatnot. We usually do like the panel ones every Friday, and then the one-to-ones we fit somewhere in between. But yeah, it's a bit inconsistent sometimes.
Some work rate though, considering obviously you got a full-time job.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's like you have to obviously do outside of work and that. So it's a slow burner, but we're getting there. And then lastly, obviously, with it being the Truth Temple podcast, we always like finish with a question regarding the truth. So our question for you is, what's the hardest truth you've ever had to accept?
Interesting. Hardest truth I've ever had to accept that actually turned out to be a truth was my dad being diagnosed with cancer and having 3 months left to live.
Right.
I think I know it's deep, that one, but like,
yeah, of course.
Obviously, it's very hard. You cannot accept that. Like, you can't, do you know, and with hope and being the type of person that I just didn't believe it, and then it happened. So, but yeah.
Was that like a stage 4 diagnosis?
Yeah. Like, So that's why. Yeah.
How do you sort of reconcile with that? And like, you know,
like I say, with the circumstances that happened, like after with COVID and everything, and I'm kind of in a way happy that he died young. I think there's a bit of beauty by dying young. Do you know, you don't have to get old, you don't have to suffer with chronic illnesses. Like, he was fast, do you know, he wasn't in pain long, stuff like that. I look at it positively. I try to take all the positives. Do you know, we had the best time when I was 21 when he passed away, so I had the best 21 years with him. It was incredible.
What advice would you have for young men that are going through stuff like that and they're really struggling with? What advice worked for you, and what could you offer them?
So someone told me it was like someone told me that they never ever like leave you. A part of, like, when someone passes away, like, a part of them stays with you. So if you think that they're like, it sounds weird, like within you, then they're always with you, and that for me was very comforting. Do
you feel like, so you said like, obviously a part like never leaves you, is that true, or did you have to manifest that?
I don't know if it's true or not, like, being completely honest, I don't know if it's true, but I want to think that it's true, and I do think it's true, because if I didn't, then I don't think it's just a lot more comforting if you think it's true.
And I've heard it like they say, like, it never gets easier. Is that true? Like, does it get easier, or do you just get stronger and more able to cope with the stress that it gives you?
I think you always miss people, but I think time is a healer. I think you accept stuff over time. I'll admit, like, you do think about them less as well. Like, at first, it's horrendous. Like, you're non-stop thinking about, what's just happened, and then it goes to kind of like, every couple of hours you might think of them, and then it's like every day, and then it kind of it might be every two. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it kind of, so it does get easier in that way. I almost feel guilty sometimes. It's going proper deep now, but like, I always feel guilty sometimes if I've not thought about my dad in a couple of days or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shit, like. Or there's like some things like, you forget, like once, like, I forgot it was his birthday on his birthday.
You're right, okay.
And I was like, fuck, that's like bad.
Yeah.
Like, and I almost felt guilty, but then I was like, why am I feeling guilty? Like,
you wouldn't give a shit.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, so like, it's just stuff like that. But it definitely gets easier.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Jake Dearden, you've been an absolute pleasure, mate.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for having me on. It's been incredible.
Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video and you want to see future videos like this video, then like and subscribe and follow the Truth Temple podcast. Here at the Truth Temple podcast, we've got a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers by the end of Please help us out and subscribe.